So hello and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. Welcome back. I'm your host, Vic Stams. And today, I know I say this all the time, but I do have an incredibly special guest. Now, it was very hard to get this individual to come by the studio today, but I could not be happier he's in the building. This gentleman is, first and foremost, an amazing person. He is one of the most talented surgeons that I know, that I've ever personally met. He's a pillar in the community. He is a notable member of his fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha. I don't want to say that too loudly. Competing interest. And he's just overall an amazing friend. He's a world traveler. He's an entrepreneur. He's a real estate developer. He is none other than Dr. Douglas Jones. Brother Jones, welcome to the studio.
Appreciate that, man. I know how people feel when you get a good introduction.
But that's not even half of it. I mean, you are so many things to the community. You're so many things to your patients. I just want to take a step back and just try to figure out how you got to where you are today. Tell me a little bit about you. Where are you from? Because you're not from Illinois, if I recall correctly.
Not at all. Not at all. I grew up in Portsmouth/Chesapeake, Virginia. Shout out to the 757.
Wait, is that the Atlantic? Is that the coast or where?
It's the coast, southeast. You got Norfolk, you got Virginia Beach, you got Hampton Roads.
Okay, so you're
that whole area.
So you're
right
a beach
there.
kid then.
So I'm kind of on the older side. So it's always Tidewater to me, Tidewater, Virginia. So
okay, all right. So you got ties to Virginia then. But I do. So is that where Virginia Tech came into play, or how did that happen?
Well, that's where I went for undergrad.
Okay, so you grew up in Portsmouth or the Portsmouth area.
Chesapeake to be exact, but it was real close to the border.
Tell me about that because, I mean, when I think of Virginia, I think of like the Old South, the Confederacy, etc.
There's some of that still around. But Virginia, if you stay on the East Coast, so, like when we went to undergrad, there were a lot of people, we had little cliques. So you had your Northern Virginia crew, we call them Nova. So that's pretty much Maryland, D.C., Virginia crew.
Okay.
Then you had the Richmond guys.
Okay.
Then you had the Tidewater guys. So those were the three cliques. So we would give each other a little, grief here and there, but it's all good.
Okay. So you grew up in Virginia, and then somehow you ended up at Virginia Tech. Was that for undergrad?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about that, because I know Michael Vick went there, but beyond that, I mean, Virginia Tech is a hard school to get into from what I know.
It's a little different. It's a state school, so they really want to try to make it accessible to people. But me going to Virginia Tech, so nobody in my family had officially gotten a college degree when I was graduating high school.
Really?
So yeah, I'm the first one in the family to get a college degree.
Wow, okay.
So I didn't have parents who really knew the college system and everything like that. So when I was growing up, did well in science, did well in some math classes, and they were like, everybody said I should be an engineer. So I ain't know any better. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be an engineer.
Okay.
And as you know, Virginia Tech's kind of like here at the U of I. It's a good engineering school.
Right.
So everybody steered me towards there. And actually, I decided to go to Virginia Tech because they had a weekend you could go to the campus and get to know it. And I hung out with some guys, and I had a great time. And I was like, shit, I'm going to Tech. So,
this don't seem like it has anything to do with engineering, though. So.
Unfortunately, it didn't.
We'll say that for another story.
Yeah, another story, another time.
So you went from nobody in your family going to college to all of a sudden you just make the leap to engineering?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's what I was told was good. But so this is very interesting because this is going to lead into why I'm in medicine. So I tell people all the time, I went to Virginia Tech and I was a triple major. I majored in basketball.
Okay.
I majored in spades and I majored in parties. And I took my studies so seriously, I lost a lot of my scholarships and aid to school. So after my freshman year, I actually had to figure out how I was going to get money for school. And I ended up deciding to go in the military. And I only wanted to do a 2-year enlistment.
Okay.
So when I was talking to the recruiter, the old guard is up in Virginia. It's right by Arlington National Cemetery.
Okay.
And he was saying, given my scores and given my height, it'll be easy for me to get into that. So I decided I would go into infantry.
Okay.
To make sure I only had a 2-year enlistment.
Wow.
And so I could get into old guard.
Okay.
What kind of stunk there is while I was in basic, they wanted me to take a language test.
Okay.
And the day I took that language test was the first, well, they actually had somebody come from the old guard as a recruiter. So when I came back from the language test, I found out that I missed the old guard recruiter. And I was like, oh, snap. It was going to mess up all my plans.
Okay.
So I begged the drill sergeant to get the recruiter to come back. And normally drill sergeants don't listen to recruits.
Okay.
He happened to be nice enough to get the recruiter to come back. Then he, talked to me, and he brought me into the old guard.
So now you're spending 2 years in the military, in the infantry. Were you deployed any place or?
Not at all.
Okay.
But the reason that's important to why we're here talking to each other is while I was in the old guard, one time I was doing a mission, and we didn't have a medic assigned to our actual company. So while I was sitting there, and they were like, we're going to just make you the medic, and you act like the medic during this training session. So whenever anybody came up and asked me who I was like I was the medic. So the next time we had another training session, maybe like 2 months later, we did have a medic assigned to me, to the company. And when I saw him, I was like, man, the last time we were in the wood line, they had me acting like the medic. And then he was like, so what did you do? I was like, nothing. I just sat around and said I was the medic. He was like, that's all? I was like, yeah, what else I'm supposed to do? So he pretty much said, hey, if I remember correctly, it was either an IV or a splint. He was like, hey, you want to learn how to put in an IV or want to learn how to put in a splint? And I worked with him for maybe like a couple of hours or whatever. And after that, not knowing anything, because like I said, nobody in my family went to college. I was just like, all right, I'm going to be a doc after this, man. That was cool.
Just like that.
And when I got back to tech, my sophomore year, I decided to switch from engineering to chemistry because I refused to do biology. Everybody who's pre-med does biology.
Right.
That just didn't sit well
Chemistry
with me.
is so much harder, though.
I did not do a bachelor's in science. I did a bachelor in art. So I kind of cheated a little bit on that. But it was still, it still sucked.
So did you find it challenging then, the road to medicine, being the first person in your family to go to college, no other physicians in your family, African-American? Did you find that road to get to medicine challenging?
Believe it or not, I did not. And the reason I didn't is you don't know what you don't know.
Okay.
So I was just winging it. You know what I mean? And I think because I was winging it, it made it less stressful for me.
I see.
You know what I mean?
But how did you make the jump then from medicine to surgery? Tell me about that. You ended up at one of the top institutions during your training in the nation at Cleveland Clinic. How do you make that? I mean, this is not by happenstance. I mean, this is pretty remarkable stuff. So tell me about that journey.
Well, kind of starts in med school. The funny thing about Cleveland Clinic is, so I went to Morehouse School of Medicine. Mm-hmm. So a lot of places would come and try to recruit our students. So one day they had about 6 desks out there, and they were recruiting students to look into the hospital system or whatever. And I walked past one, and it was a lady sitting there, and I saw it, and it said Cleveland Clinic. And I stopped, and I was like, why should I go to Cleveland Clinic? And it just so happened my friend in med school was like, man, dummy, this is one of the best hospitals in the whole country.
In the world.
He grew up in Ohio, but I didn't know that. Like I said, I'm new to college.
Right.
If nobody went to college, and there's no doctors in the family.
Right.
So it was funny. So then I was like, oh, bet, word. So I ended up applying for that, and I did an away rotation there. And it was hilarious because when I showed up at Cleveland Clinic, I went to that same woman's office, and I knocked on her door. I was like, guess who's here? And she just started dying. She was literally like, out of everybody I ever met at the med school, you tripped me out talking about why should you come to Cleveland Clinic? Nobody ever says
Nobody
that.
ever asked that.
Never asked that.
I'm curious, though, because, for many of us going into medicine or who are in medicine, we have struggled going into some of the more competitive fields, such as surgery. Many of us have been discouraged and told we can't go into surgery. We're not good enough to go into surgery. We should go into some of the primary care fields. Did you experience any of that? I mean, it seems like you just kind of went to the top institutions, kind of just easily made your way through. Did you feel any opposition?
It was nothing easy about that.
Okay.
I think so when you look back at it, it's kind of like, have you ever noticed people who go to Harvard undergrad? There are a lot of smart students all around the world, but every person in Harvard has this one unique quality. It's like they won a medal at the Olympics. You know what I mean? They started a business they sold when they were 15 years old. They've written like a couple of best-selling books. They're like, they always have this something extra about them. So going back to my military time, that is a prestigious unit. So I was in the 3rd U.S. Infantry, which is the ceremonial unit. They have the color guard. They have the drill team that throw the rifles all around. And I spent about a little less than a month at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And that opens up some doors. Now, I bring that up and I always let people know I never got my tomb badge. That's something that usually takes about 9 to 11 months and things like that. But I got into it with one of the sergeants at the tomb, and I never got my tomb badge. So I never became a tomb sentinel. I didn't get that, my tomb badge. But at the same time, I was actually on the mat. I have guarded it. I was part of that unit before we got into it. We kind of butted heads. That's the only sergeant I can remember his name.
Sure. So I mean, this is interesting. So you complete Cleveland Clinic, and now you're a board certified general surgeon. I guess when I look at the TV shows like the Grey's Anatomy or the ER shows, they kind of portray medicine as sort of these guys in scrubs and lab coats and scruffy beards, and they're up all hours of the night. But when I see you, every time I see you, I mean, you're dressed to the nines. I mean, impeccable, always have on a bow tie. I don't know. We'll get to that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But I mean, you don't look like sort of the TV doctor that we're used to seeing. I mean, you look like, a GQ star. I mean, so tell me about this fashion sense and how is this a part of who you are as a physician?
Man, for some reason, it kind of all goes together. So I always wanted to kind of look the part, look pretty fashionable. And then, I always wanted to stay in shape and kind of have this fitness model build. And that kind of happened when I was watching Wolverine and when Hugh Jackman did that infamous scene where he took his claws out on the train or whatever. I was like, this dude's 1 year older than me. I was like, if he can look that jacked, man, I gotta get back in the gym. But it's kind of like a personality now. That's how everybody knows me in the area,
including the bow tie. Because I've never seen you with just a normal necktie.
Used to when I first came. I at one point until recently, I gave away my neckties. I had more regular neckties than bow ties, and I got like 40-something bow ties.
That's
and
amazing.
I had more neckties, but I actually had some of the neckties that were actually sentimental converted into bow ties.
Wow. Okay. I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah.
Now I noticed one of the things that you have on your social media handle, and we want to make sure that we shout out your social media. What's your handle?
A Day in the Life of Dr. J. So at A Day in the Life of Dr. J.
Now, I notice every day or every week you always post an inspirational quote on your social media with, I guess, the bow tie or the cufflinks of the day, because that's another component.
I slowed down on the bow ties and the cufflinks on that. But I like to do the inspirational, the Monday motivation. So
does that help you get motivated? Is that designed to inspire others? I mean, where did that come about?
I usually do, when I'm doing the Monday motivation, it does inspire me. So I would not post anything that is not an inspiration to me, but it's usually meant for a family member, usually my kids or one of my nieces or nephews. I usually have them in mind. I want them to kind of think about and to know the things that I didn't know when I was younger.
I see.
And that kind of goes back to what we were saying. Remember, I said I ended up in medicine. I kind of did all this because I had the freedom to do it. I didn't know any better. I have a niece who, as smart as can be, and she's in her own head, I think, because she knows too much about medicine.
Yeah.
And, she wants to get into medicine and stuff, and I'm her resource and stuff. But sometimes when you know too much, you think it's supposed to be too hard, this and that. And I just tell her, just do what you need to do.
So as I think about medicine, I mentioned some of the shows that I watch. How close is TV to reality of what you do every day? So for the average person that's watching this, they're expecting, life-saving things that happen every day, maybe make-out scenes in the hospital or whatever's on Grey's Anatomy, conflicts between coworkers. What's the average life like of an attending physician of Doug Jones? Tell me about that. I'm just curious.
I will say, now I'm talking about general. Some of the stuff on Grey's Anatomy does happen because I'm thinking
Get
back
out of
to
here.
I'm thinking back to some of my boys, and I'm not going to put any of my boys on blast.
You don't rat anybody out, please.
Not at all. But man, some of that stuff does happen. Man. There's some drama in the hospital.
But tell me about an average day in the life of you. I mean,
well, one thing that people don't realize, we personally, and you know this, and I can attest to it, especially surgeons, we actually like for things to be very boring. Unlike on the television shows, they always like the drama, the blood's flying all around, people running around, everybody's about to die. We prefer to not see any of that.
Agree 100%.
Now, sometimes we do, and we take care of what we need to. So unless you're a trauma surgeon, you're not trying to have all that drama. If you're a regular surgeon, you like for everything to go cool. I always say, and I tell like medical students, I tell residents, I would tell anybody that if you leave my operating room and you're like, man, that was easy, man. I think Dr. Jones overpaid. Like, man, I could have done that. Then I did it exactly right.
Perfect.
If you think you can do what I do when you walk out the room and went the way it's supposed to go. Now, the few times that the hits the fan, then everybody leaves the room and be like, oh my God, what was that? You don't want them shook.
But one of the things, speaking of your operating room, that I'm always struck by is your music. Now, for a lot of people who don't know about the operating room in surgery, one of the key components in the operating room is music. Everybody has their own musical selection, their own repertoire, playlist, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
but you're somewhat different. Tell me about your musical influences, what you like to listen to in the operating room, what sort of puts you in that mood?
So I always have several playlists. I have the ones that have almost like, might go back to the 70s all the way to the current, always have like kind of different genres. I'm not a big country person, but on those playlists, I always put one or two songs I can tolerate because I want the whole room involved. There's usually a song for everybody. But it's always going to be heavy on the R&B and
heavy on the R&B,
hip hop. You know how we do it, man. You know how we get down.
One of the things
and don't sleep. Afro beats.
One of the things I have to attest to as I sort of adjust in my seat is that every time I operate with you, I always have to ask for the table up or I'm on a step stool, man. How tall are you, just out of curiosity? Because you're like operating elevation.
I'm like 6'2", 6'3".
Man, you're more like 6'3", man. I hate operating with you, man. I feel like
good posture.
I feel like I'm on a couple of step stools when I'm working with you.
Man, you're hilarious.
So one of the things that strikes me about you is that even though you operate a lot and you're incredibly efficient at what you do and very good at what you do, you always seem to find time to travel. Every time I look up, you're someplace not just nationally but internationally.
Yeah.
Is travel a part of kind of who you are? Is that something that you seek out?
Without a doubt.
Tell me about travel and why is it important to you? I mean, from what I know, growing up in a family, nobody went to college in Virginia, stayed in Virginia.
Nobody travels in my family, really.
And nobody travels.
I don't even think, maybe my youngest sister has a passport. I don't even know if anybody else really even has a passport.
So how did you get into traveling then?
Well, marrying a woman who's from another country will kind of kickstart that. So my wife is from Liberia. She's half Liberian, half Lebanese. Father's Lebanese, mother's Liberian. And when we met, I've always wanted to travel, but having a spouse like that kicks it up. And then you said we've been traveling a lot recently. She's the, director for global relations for the University of Illinois.
That's heavy.
She's always traveling now. Right. So I'm kind of riding her coattails. So.
Okay. Now, one of your other passions, though, that I know about is fashion, as we talked about, but also cars. Tell me about your love of cars and speed, because you're not alone. A lot of people like cars, whether it's trucks, whether it's motorcycles and Harleys.
Yeah.
But you're a car guy.
Well, I'm not as much as I would like to be. So the youngest is getting ready to start college. So
I see. Okay.
Once she gets out of college, then I'm gonna really get into this car stuff.
Okay.
But, yeah, man, I like rides. I haven't indulged like I probably will, but my brother-in-law and I did that BMW M class.
Okay.
Down in South Carolina, and that was a blast.
Nice.
What I really want to learn how to do is I want to learn how to drift cars. So I've been looking
Oh my
into
God,
that.
man.
Man, dude, I want to.
But you're in surgery,
that's
though.
What I want. Yeah,
you've
but
seen this.
You don't race. You don't race when you drift. I want to learn how to control that car.
Okay.
And
Okay.
That's something I really want to learn.
Okay.
So I'm looking at some drift schools. I think I'm gonna do that one that's down in Texas.
Now, I try to be dismissive about this earlier, but I guess we'll come back to it. You're a fraternity guy. Now,
Yeah,
for
man.
those who
Come on.
don't know,
Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on with it.
The Divine Nine.
First of all.
Okay. The Divine Nine consists of a series of fraternities and sororities that are very prominent in the African American community.
Without a
you
doubt.
are a member of, and I hate to say it, the original fraternity.
There you go, man. That black and old gold.
Alpha Phi Alpha. Now,
Black for the color of man, old gold.
There
Come
will
on,
be some
man.
people that watch this that are alphas, that are kappas, etc.
Yeah, but I got love for you. You know, the good thing is with age, love for all the D9.
Okay.
All of them.
Okay.
All of them.
Now, how did you choose Alpha Phi Alpha when you were in college? I mean,
Well, it started before college. So I was heavily influenced by friends. So I had a friend, my classmate Rod Owens. If you ever see this, shout out. Well, Rod, his older brother, and his dad are all alphas. His mom was an AKA. Mom and dad actually went to Virginia State together and stuff. So, you know, I was influenced by them. And that's basically how it happened. So, you know, I think that happens to a lot. You don't know what you don't know. So I basically never gave the other the other four a chance.
yeah.
Because of that. So that's you know, and I like, you know, Alpha stands for all the stuff I'm about.
Now,
I'm about that life.
are you still pretty active in the fraternity?
Not as much as I would like to. When I first came here, I was active, and I even took on the treasurer position. But as you know, being a surgeon, being on call, you know, it was a lot of times I couldn't fulfill my duties like I should.
Yeah.
And one of the bros, shout out to Shafe. Shafe is like, "Come on, man, you got to do better," which is true. And it's just, you know, being on call and stuff. Our schedule didn't
Now, speaking
allow
on
it.
call, I saw your phone over there. You're on call today.
Yeah, so if you guys
So-
hear the phone go off, I will have to answer it.
Well, so what exactly does call entail then? I guess you're notified if they're
Yeah, so when we say we're on call, it kind of depends on how the hospital is set up. So you're a Carl physician, I'm a Christie Clinic physician. So for you guys who are around the area, you might know what that means. But basically, I'm an independent clinic with Christie, and we use your facilities. So there's our actual acute surgical care team that they take on a lot of the surgical stuff, but we have to take care of all the Christie patients. So when we're on call, we're coming in and we're doing a lot of the operations. We have to take care of admit patients. Maybe they had a post-op complication, things like that. So, you know, we happen to take it for a week at a time.
Okay.
But we don't have as many patients come through the ED as you guys.
Now, this sounds busy. How long do you think you can keep this pace up? I mean, you're operating like a young man.
You know, for right now, I feel like I can keep it up for a minute. For a minute. That's what I was making sure my nutrition's on point. You know, still trying to keep workout. Hey, but you know, I'm trying to get in a position that when I feel like, man, this stuff is starting to wear on me.
Yeah,
that I can.
So then, what is some of your interest in? I guess post medicine. What do you think the future holds for you? I know that you're involved in real estate.
I'm a really hit real estate hard.
Okay.
When I hang it up or start really slowing down from medicine,
that's a passion of yours.
Hard. Yeah, you know, and I'm reading up on stuff now, and you know, I might try my hand at a small development or something like that. You know, and really start getting into some increase in that portfolio.
Okay, I you know, a couple weeks ago I interviewed a good friend of mine, Dion Clifton. Shout out to Dion. Yeah, she's a real estate agent in town, and
she's doing it big. Man.
She's doing it huge.
She's doing it big.
And I guess I didn't know how involved and demanding real estate is. So you're telling me you're going to go out of the frying pan into the fire with a busy real estate career, then from surgery to real estate?
You know one thing that as a physician,
You just can't slow down.
But no, you want to know one thing as a physician that helps is we have an unfair advantage. You know how people say their job is stressful?
Yeah.
It's not really stressful. There are some stressful jobs. People who are firefighters, that's
Sure.
stressful.
Agree with that.
Policemen, that's
Agree with that.
stressful. Pilots and people, because it's a life and death situation. So unfortunately, I've had patients pass away, and that stuff that really sucks. So it makes it easy to go into something like real estate. I mean, technically, ain't nobody, if I do a deal and let's say I miss a couple of numbers, or let's say I didn't read the contract as well, somebody didn't die,
So that is a very real part of medicine. Is that with life there comes death. But I guess as you look back on your career, and you've had an amazing career thus far, what are some of the things that you're most proud of in your career?
I think I'm most proud that I've been able to take care of people in a way where I really listened to them, and I took care of the things that needed to be taken care of, to the point where I've been embraced by the actual community. So I have a lot of people. I get people to come into the room and they're like, they tried to send me to somebody else and I told them no and this and that, and they come back and see. So that always makes you feel good.
I will agree with that. I think when I first came to town, before I even met you, I met people that just told me, you got to meet Dr. Jones. I said, who is this? Dr. J, Dr. Jones. And then when I finally met you and had them work with you, it's clear why so many of your patients just love and adore you. I mean, you've just done tremendous work for the community and for your patients. So as we transition to the next segment of today's podcast, I have a couple of fun questions that I want to answer for you. So I'm going to hit you with a few questions, kind of rapid fire. And then you kind of just tell me first thing, kind of what comes to mind.
Hopefully we won't have to bleep any of this out.
All right, but hopefully not. So this will be. I'll start out easy then, and we'll kind of slowly get into it.
All right.
So first question is bow tie or necktie?
Bow tie.
Okay, that was pretty quick.
That was good.
Okay. As a surgeon, what is your favorite surgical instrument? What's the one thing that you cannot go without in the operating room? Just about any case, you absolutely need this one thing. What is that?
3-0 Vicryl.
3-0 Vicryl. That is your go-to stitch. That is your go-to stitch.
I probably go through, well, I'm sure all the surgical techs will tell you I use way too many.
Yeah.
That's like the go-to suture, man.
I think what the surgical techs would tell me is that they have to load your instruments left-handed.
Oh, without a doubt.
Most people don't know you're left-handed.
Unless it's easier for me to get to right-handed. I'm ambidextrous enough. I can switch to right.
They ever beat you as a kid or in residency, and just make you operate right-handed?
One of our pillars in our department was left-handed, and I think that helped. He already paid the way as an attendant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it made it just a little bit easier for you.
Dr. Walsh, man. Shout out to Matthew Walsh, Cleveland Clinic.
All right. We talked about quotes earlier. What is your favorite inspirational quote? What's kind of your go-to quote that kind of just gets through, just about any situation?
Oh, wow.
Do you have one?
That's a good question.
You have several. I've seen some of them on your social media. Is there one quote
I do have a lot. I pull whichever one I need, but I don't think I have a go-to.
Okay, all right, fair
multiple.
enough. Now, are you a morning person or are you a night owl?
So, by birth, night owl.
Okay.
Now both, unfortunately. Dude, I still, you know how my wife is, man. So I literally am still doing about 5.5 hours of sleep.
Wow.
A day. And I must be one of those people that can function on that, because she'll get mad if I get home at like 8 o'clock. And then I try to be in the bed at 9:30. She's like, you didn't spend any time with me and this and that. And I can understand that.
That's why I had to ask you. I said, how long can you keep this pace up, man? I mean, you just go
that's a good point.
Yeah,
I'm okay for right now.
Okay.
And if it changes, then we'll come back and do another session.
Fair enough. We talked about your travel earlier. Where is the favorite place? What is the top place, the most amazing place that you've been to out of all of your travels? You've been to a lot of places.
You know what I'll say? anything tropical, I always like. But my new thing being in a lot of different metropolitan cities. So these are my top 3 cities, keeping in mind it has to be a major city. We're talking about 1 million people or more. And it's when it has the natural beauty, it has all the big city amenities, the high rises and all like that. And it's just like the best of all the combinations. So this is going off of the way it looks, as well as the vibe. You know,
What
the
is your
people were
list?
nice and everything. So number 3,
Go in reverse order.
Number 3, Vancouver, Canada.
Oh my God, you sound like me. Tell me about Vancouver. Why do you love
Man,
Vancouver?
Vancouver is beautiful, man.
It is, but it's cold.
So we
though.
went
It's
there.
cold. It's cold.
It's cold, but I was there when it was warm.
Okay, fair enough.
Because that's a good question.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so I'm
that
not
where
a big
Drake is
skier,
from?
but I need to start working with you on that.
Isn't Drake from Vancouver or something?
No,
like-
he's from Toronto. That's the New York of Canada.
Oh, you're on the
Toronto.
West Coast side. Okay.
But your boy Ryan Reynolds is from
Ryan Reynolds.
Vancouver.
Okay, fair
All
enough.
right. But I remember being in Stanley Park, and I didn't know about it. It's just beautiful. You look all around. So we're driving through this beautiful park, and out of nowhere, you just hit this opening, and it's that green version of the Golden Gate Bridge going over. And I was like, this is bananas.
Yeah.
And then we went to that ski slope because they said it was so close.
Yep.
And I remember it was a weekday. And we left downtown, and we got on this, like, we were on the tram or the subway.
Yep.
And there was this little kid that was like 12 years old with a snowboard. He had just gotten out of school.
Yeah. Yep.
And we were literally on the ski slope from downtown in 40 minutes on public transportation. And I was like, this is bananas.
Now,
So-
hold on now. So, before we get to the other 2 on your list, you should be skiing, though. You're a surgeon. I mean,
Well, what about you, bro?
well, okay.
Come
We'll
on,
talk
man.
about me. We'll talk about me at a later date.
Look
Okay,
at it, look at it.
All right.
Hey,
So number 2,
look at your boy. Look at your boy.
Number 2 on your list. Vancouver's number 3. Let's keep going.
Number 2, just went there for spring break this year. Sydney, Australia.
Australia.
Yeah, man.
How long is that
Sydney.
flight?
It's a long flight, bro. Well, shoot, I just got back from Singapore. That was just under 16.
I may
right
never
around
make
16.
it. I may never make it. That's too long.
If I remember correctly, it was about 15.
Wow.
And some change.
Okay.
And we left from, man, what city did we leave from?
I'm assuming L.A. or California, one of those places.
I think it was LA.
Okay.
Well, I left from LA, San Francisco to get to Singapore. I think it was LA.
Okay.
I think it was LA. And it was about
Sydney,
15.
Australia. Now I operate with you a lot. You take care of a lot of skin cancers. You should know better than hanging out in Australia with all
well,
that
I was
sun.
only there for a week.
Okay.
All right.
What did you love about Sydney?
Man, it's a beautiful land. Man, that's a beautiful city.
Okay.
It's a beautiful
Is it
city.
any city in the U.S. that Sydney reminds you of?
Not really remind me of.
So it's getting its
'Cause
own individual flavor to it.
Yeah, it has a lot of water there and stuff. I guess you could say kind of like San Fran.
Okay.
But they just have a different vibe. You know, plus I had never been there.
Okay.
You know, you get to take pictures at the Opera House. Well, I turned, my birthday was there.
Okay.
And, you know, Sammer rented a catamaran. So we were out there on our birthday in
Wow.
Sydney Harbor.
That's dope.
Driving past the Opera House,
That's
driving
dope.
under the bridge. So,
Nice.
You know, that
Nice.
was close to some Jay-Z Big Pimpin'
Man,
stuff right there.
that's
So, you know,
definitely Jay-Z
that didn't hurt
Pimp, yeah,
anything,
Big
man.
Pimpin'.
You know?
No doubt. So
Yeah.
Sydney, and then we got to cap it off. What is your top destination that you've been to?
So the reason I picked this destination,
This
some
better be
part-
amazing, man. You just named Vancouver, you named Sydney.
some
This better
parts-
be
so
amazing.
we had a private driver that took us about a 20 or 30 mile radius all around. Some parts were like Hawaii to me, and some parts were like South Beach. Kent's Bay is like South Beach.
Okay.
And then you know, it just had all kind of vibes. Some places were like San Francisco with the row houses and stuff.
Wow.
But Cape Town.
Cape Town, South Africa.
And the reason is Cape Town has this thing called Table Mountain.
I've heard of that.
And it just takes up, like, you can see it from almost everywhere you are. And that Table Mountain, and they got Signal Mountain that's like right beside it.
Uh-huh.
Because that's there and it has such a prominence on it and all the water and everything else, man, that's my favorite city.
Cape Town, South Africa.
Hey, I'm probably going to end up spending about maybe 2-3 months a year when
Really?
I retire. Yeah.
You
man.
loved it that much?
That's my spot.
Wow, okay.
Plus the food is great and it's cheap too.
Is
man.
it?
So,
Okay.
you know, you get, you know, I'll be eating a lot of prawn and all that
Okay,
kind of
okay.
stuff. Getting out,
I would
you
not
know.
have expected that. Cape Town, I gotta put that on my to-do list. Okay,
Yeah.
let's wrap up this list. What is your favorite book or movie? If you had to choose, which
Oh,
one?
wow. So I got 3 movies I like to recommend
Okay.
that are my favorite, and they're kind of older. These are my staples. So if you haven't seen any of these 3, you need to see all of them. So the first, Shawshank Redemption.
Oh yeah, great movie. Great
Yeah.
movie.
And the second one is Usual Suspects.
Great movie. Yep.
Yeah.
Great movie.
And the third one's because we're
Kevin
in medicine
Spacey.
and everything, Memento.
I never saw Memento.
I actually recommended that to some people in the OR. So if you haven't seen Memento,
Okay.
add that to the list.
The other ones
as
I've
we're
checked
going.
out though. I got to check out
Yeah,
Memento.
and I mean, there's a lot of other ones I like, but those are the 3 I like to recommend.
All right. If you're not a surgeon, what would you be?
Race car driver for Ferrari or Lamborghini.
That's so like Lewis Hamilton. Then.
I'm too tall for that, but you can always dream.
What's your favorite comfort food? What's your go-to food?
Oh,
From the South, Virginia.
It's not even from the South anymore, man. I married a Liberian, so
Fair enough.
Either flour sauce or pompata. That's how we get down.
Okay, that's there's Liberian, man. I got,
when I go home, I got to get caught up with a fried pork chop.
Oh yeah, no,
man.
Once you smother it, in my case, I'll take a smothered fried pork chop.
You don't eat a lot of it, but when you get there, you got to do what you got to do.
A lot of people know you as the surgeon, Doug Jones.
Yeah.
What's one thing that people don't know about you? What's the one thing that people would be surprised to know about you? What do you think that is?
Man, I don't know. Oh, I actually don't mind going to all the plays and stuff.
I did not know that about you.
Yeah.
You always talk about
my wife. Yeah, so that's the one, like the female thing that a lot of females like to do that doesn't bother me at all.
I did not know that. You always talk about drifting cars, so I had no idea you were in the plays.
Man. No, I like going to plays.
Okay,
and stuff like that.
Who's your biggest role model?
Ooh, it all depends on what you're talking about. Whether it be sports or whether it be like people in business and things like that. But leaders. And this guy is, pretty much consensus all around the world as the best leader we had, that's Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
Or, and then it kind of changes. It all depends on if you're talking about medicine.
Sure.
People I admire in medicine are actually the people I train that trained me.
Yeah, you mentioned Dr. Walsh earlier. So
Dr. Walsh was a big influence. Yeah. Dr. Sipperstein, shout out to Dr. Alan Sipperstein. I didn't even check if he's still operating. He should be, man.
Major players at Cleveland Clinic. So
yeah.
Who's what's your favorite hobby outside of work? What's the one thing you have to do when you're not at work?
I like to lift. Put a gym in the basement.
I knew that. I knew you were big into weightlifting, and so that's kind of your. What's people talk about maxes. What do you squat or what do you deadlift or bench press?
My
any of that
maxes
stuff?
are low now, but I was proud. At one point, I deadlifted 505.
Oh my gosh,
and
man, that's crazy weight.
My form,
that's crazy.
Yeah, especially since I'm so thin. I got some shout outs from some high school and college kids. Because when I lifted and put it down, somebody was like, "Dang, that old man's strong."
That's crazy weight. Yeah, I wish I could put up that kind of weight.
No, I wouldn't do that now. I'll blow a disc out.
Last two things.
All right.
Most memorable patient interaction.
Ooh, that's a good one. It's been a lot.
Can't think of just one.
Can't think of just one. And if I do, it's just probably because it's the most recent.
Sure. Yeah. What's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten from anybody?
Ooh. Wow.
These are heavy-hitting questions, man. I'm like Oprah.
I don't know if I can. The best advice, I don't know. But I know a saying. This was when, God rest his soul, one of my colleagues, Dr. Lips, Henry Lips, better known as Hank. And he told me something that I still think of to this day. He was like, Jonesy, they want to see you do good, but not too good. So that keeps stuff in perspective on, how things are going.
No doubt about that.
They want to see you do good, but not too good. I think I told you that.
I know you did, and that stuck in my mind too. I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
As I think about this, man, we've gone for almost 30 minutes, just kind of chopping it up.
Are you serious, man?
I think time has flown by. It's been about.
We must be real cool then, man.
Time has
Literally,
flown by.
it feels like 10 minutes.
Time has flown by, and
that's good stuff.
I'm
man.
really excited because I feel like the audience got a chance to see a different side of you that they probably didn't think of or didn't know of before this interview today.
I wasn't even thinking about this interview, but remember we talked about doing a podcast?
We did.
And you already interviewed Shio.
I did.
For anybody who see that episode, so the whole thing we were talking about is the reason we brought this up, of course, is we were always known as the guys in the operating room with the voices. And I got the weakest voice out of the three of us. So we'll see how it goes. We'll get some feedback. You'll look at the comments.
Yeah.
But Shio is the talent, man. Somebody needs to tell that dude to start doing some voiceovers because he's literally sitting on a multi-million-dollar voice, man. I don't think he should be a doc.
There is this. I see a way that in the future, all three of us are linked up, doing something special. But
I really think that dude should not be a doctor. I know he's smart enough and he's a great physician and everything, but that's not his calling. The Lord gifted him with a serious gift.
No, I definitely believe that.
Yeah, man.
But before we wrap up today, what's the one thing that you want to tell the audience? As we close up, we definitely gave him your handle, so make sure you follow him on social media. What's the one piece of parting advice that you want to give anybody who's watching, whether it's our medical students,
and this is
whether it's friends,
everybody.
family in the community?
I think the rabbit hole of going down self-improvement is really where it's at. And I think there's so many different avenues that you will end up going down the path that's best for you. But I think everybody should try to better themselves just a little bit. You don't have to do anything over the top, but try to better yourself on a daily, a weekly, and a yearly basis. I think that's the best way to go about life. And if you notice a lot of the religions and things like that, that's basically what it's about. It's about betterment. And there's a lot of different ways to go about it. You know, if you got a Bible verse that says this, somebody, in today's time has put it in print in a book or a podcast, and they'll say it a little differently. So you just find something that resonates with you. And as long as it's for your good, trying to improve things, I think that's great. Because, of course, the way everything is going on in the world today and stuff like that, we can use everybody being a little kinder, being a little wiser,
No question.
Just
No question.
treating each other like human beings and stuff.
question.
We can have differences. We can look at life differently, but we need to try to respect each other a little more.
Well, I cannot think of a better note to close on.
Yeah, man.
I cannot thank you enough for coming by the studio today.
Man, we finally made it happen.
But this is only part one. We definitely gonna link up again for part two,
without a doubt.
To those of you who tuned in, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Vic Stamps podcast, and make sure you tune in for the next guest next week. Thank you,
Keep
Brother
following
Jones.
my boy.
Peace.
All right, out.